Hello students, you might have gone through the story that is Chrysanthemums. As we have gone through the detailed plot of the story, you will come to know that that the characters are very few in numbers. The characters are of the variety that we see reflected in the story. It is the domesticated, most feminine way the character has been designed and portrayed by John Steinbeck's Elisa. Elisa is developed through her art, through her skills at tending the chrysanthemums. The chrysanthemums bears the significant change. It stands for the change that is reflected in Elisa's character. The characters like Henry and Elisa are contrasted here with. The contrast is shown towards the Elisa has been emotionally developed, interesting in her outlook, interesting in her work, but whereas Henry, who is not able to understand the Elisa, the change that we see in Elisa, it stands for his routine work when he returns home. Elisa is as we see in E.M. Foster's concept, it's a round character, as we know, since there is change. The change is reflected in her character. The change is very simple, is that the visit of the multitasker has brought the confidence, has brought her enthusiasm, reinvigorated her feminine aspirations, the desire, the love, and the care that a person can give her. The multitasker, with his short visit, loved her heart, praised her work, praised her chrysanthemums, and she is very adroit. She felt that her art and skill has been taken notice of. To Henry, these are routine work, but for multitasker, he praised it. It is of course implied to understand the crux of the multitasker to earn his livelihood. He is in enigma. Is in enigma in the sense, if he work, then he could get the food for the day. If he is not, he will starve. Upas mar hui. He will starve. And these obligations to earn the food made him to praise the Elisa's work, to praise the Elisa's work, as we have seen. Elisa Notice that the flower pot that she had handed over to the multitasker is thrown on the road, just far below, just a bit far down the road, when both Henry and Eliza were going to dine out and for the show. So it is the change that we see. It is change that we see in Eliza, but without reacting to anything, she realized the utter obligations to earn the livelihood, and to what way the multitasker needs to lie about, what type of life the multitasker may be living. She just wondered at the multitasker, that it is his food that has made him to lie to her. So, as we have seen the change that we see in Eliza, so Eliza is a central figure in the story. The next character we must understand is Henry. Henry is a patriarchal figure. He is being a husband, is not consuming much more space in the story. Is there with a very few scenes that we see reflected in the story. So Henry, as we know, is busy in tending his heads, sheep and goats. He's a farmer on the ranches of Salinas Valley across the river. He is tending this. He was busy with the strangers, and he has sold 30 of them to the meat company. Next, he's planned, he's got a good amount of money. He's planned to go out. So Henry isn't able to understand Eliza's work, Chrysanthemums, the art and skill of Henry. Henry found it difficult to cope with the emotional change, but something fresh he noticed on her face. But what are the reasons? Eliza is very adroit not to show any kind of emotion, any kind of feelings when she has seen the thrown away flower pot. It's on there on the road. But she just kept looking at the road from which the multitasker may have passed. So it is there that we see in the story. The next character is the multitasker. Is living a wayward life. Is living a happy-go-lucky man. He earns and he spends. He earns for his livelihood, for the food, for the day. He earns and eats, living on a single journey for 6 months long. On the way from one side and down for another 6 months, Los Angeles. So, and he's moving not through the highway, but through the road that is passing through the villages. So that, and everywhere where the day comes to an end, sun sheds to the west, he sleeps in the wagon. His roof of the house is the sky. To look at the shining, twinkling stars of the night. When he narrated his style of living, Alyssa was just surprised. She was very much infatuated, mohatpurna, of the life that the multitasker is living. Here is a man who is living a wayward life. What a way of living a life. She just wondered. And she found that she is living a life in Henry's gardening, doing all farming work. So it is implied that the three of the characters are very much contrasted and of a different type. The visit of the multitasker, he was so desperate to earn the living that he needs a work. He comes across over the fence, asks Alyssa if she had anything to mend. His art and skill of sharpening the scissors and knives is supreme. It is known, he is well known, famous for these areas. So the ladies are waiting for him for 6 months long to sharpen the knives and scissors. Alyssa was moved when he told her that he is going to starve that night if he hasn't got any kind of a work. So she has gone round to the backyard of the house, brought some old pan that she thought may be useful, then done some another smaller work for few say amount. But before the multitasker praised her work, she was moved. Her art and skill is taken care of, noticed of, and that is what she moved on. That is what she rushes back as she returns with the work. The multitasker is lying, but irrespective of that, Alyssa's the middle-aged man and her art and her work and emotional change and states of her mind had made her to supplicate before him. Her hands were moving very much near, closer to his boots, shoes and pants. She could see she was perfect. But she controlled herself. She wished to go and live the life of waywardness. But she restricted herself under the obligations of the conjugal relations she had with Henry. So we had to understand the lives of the people that we see across the culture and across the nations. So with these chrysanthemum, it indicates the major characters in such a way. The themes of the story that we have discussed in earlier lecture are self-explorations and sexual explorations, the changes and emotional drives that we see in the characters, and especially that of Alyssa. So all these features makes this story as a supreme story by John Steinbeck. So a visit of a person can bring certain changes in the lives of the character. It's an example of that. Oh, a visit for a short duration can bring the changes, can live a life of happiness and pleasure. It all stands for that. It all stands for the human exhalations that we see is reflected in the lives of the characters. So, with this story comes to an end. Thank you.